is perfection authentic?
Mm. Yeah. It's a big question, like the concept of perfection, because I think perfection can run in two directions in the way we think. So in one direction, it's the uttermost fathomable thing that we think of in terms of accuracy and perfection. Like it's a precision count from one to infinity without missing a beat,
Mm.
perfectly in sync, not missing a single number, and somehow also being able to say the bigger numbers closer to infinity as fast as you say one and two, right? Because right, if you're counting second by second, and you got second number one, that's easy. But then once you get past like 100,350, now how do you say the larger numbers? But that's one way of thinking of perfection, of being able to account for every single number precisely in the right rhythm and the right sequence from zero to infinity without any stopping. That's one form of perfection. The other form of perfection, though, has more of a what's the word? I want a word for this, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. It's like syncopation, maybe, perhaps, but it's so my favorite example of perfection, if I might, is in Harry Potter.
Okay.
I love the book series. I read all the books. I love the movies even and their interpretations of things. But there's a particular potion. It's called Felix Felicis, I believe. It's a liquid luck,
Right.
right? And so Harry Potter, he wins the bottle, in this little competition with the fellow students in the class, and he gets that bottle, and it takes him a while, but he finally decides to use it because he wants to gather some information from Slughorn. And so he decides to consume the liquid luck and
Mm.
go pursue the thing that his intent is to pursue. And of course, he immediately feels fantastic. He's like, "Oh, this is great!" And he gets up and he's like, starts walking away. And Hermione and Ron are asking Harry, like, "Where are you going?" He's like, "I feel like going for a walk." And they're like, "But what about getting information from Slughorn?" I'm going to go for a walk. And
Mm.
then he just kind of jaunts off down the hallway in some random direction that has no distinct purpose whatsoever. And yet, somehow, in his inspiration to move forward, to go on a walk, he runs into Slughorn, invites him to go down to Hagrid's hut, and the whole thing ensues, right? And
Yeah,
he
yeah,
gets
yeah.
what he's looking for. And so, in that concept of liquid luck, all these very distinct and measurable imperfections coalesce into achieving the very thing that he in
Mm.
the most absolutely perfect way that he could do. So there's that other concept of perfection where it's just a synthesis of imperfection that convolutes into perfection, versus the other idea of perfection, which is just like no possibility of any mistake in any form or fashion anywhere at all. So how do we rate perfection when it comes to AI and humanity, bringing it
Yeah.
back?
Completely agree. And I've got a third version of perfection.
Ooh, there we go.
Yeah. And the third version of perfection is that people are scared of it.
Mm.
Because once you've reached perfection, where do you go? There's only one way you can go, and that's down. And we are designed as society and as a species to always try to advance and develop. But if you've reached perfection, you've got no way to go. So I think there's that in there as well. And I think people fear not necessarily the concept, but when they see something that they think is too perfect, they then end up distrusting it because they think there's something not quite right with it if it's too perfect. And we all know it's human nature. We all like to find a flaw and we like to, find a fault with something because that's in our. I mean, you were telling me a story earlier about Oriental rugs, which I'd love you to share in a moment. But we do like we feel happy with ourselves when we find a flaw in something. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of people are doing this with AI at the moment, or they think they're doing it anyway. They really love to find out that something was written by AI because they think that's either a flaw in the person who created it, or there's something wrong with the image, or there's something wrong with the AI answer, and all the rest of it. We do love to fault. We do love to find fault in people.
I agree. I also think not just so much, fault finding, because if you have a sense of morality, perhaps fault finding becomes a little bit petulant at times, right? Like you're like, oh, well, quit looking for everybody's faults. But it's not even just looking for the fault necessarily. It's seeking for a difference. Like we're all the same, and we like having things in common with each other, but we also like being unique. Like, so
Yeah,
we want to have everything in common except for something that makes us unique and special. So we like being special, and we like having things in common. So for example, if you read something that somebody produces on LinkedIn, a post or an article of some sort, if you really love what they're saying, you will get on there and say, I love what they're saying, and I want to add something more, right?
mm,
Like, and here's my extra opinion that makes me unique from that. Or if you're not completely fond of what they're saying, you're like, well, I have a different idea about this, depending on how, you know, amenable you are to communication, you might say it in different ways. But yeah, so it's kind of tough to pinpoint how much imperfection is the right amount of perfection to make it just right, which is essentially perfect. The Goldilocks effect, right? Like,
no,
that.
absolutely, absolutely, and that's a big challenge for people using AI. It is how much AI is a good thing before it tips over, and then it gives a negative bias for people. Um, but I mean, but building in flaws is going to be a very complex task for I mean, the flaws are in the AIs already,
Mhm.
um, but it's as you say, how much how much imperfection are we willing to tolerate? People are saying, "Oh, it's rubbish. You didn't give you the right answers and all the rest of it." Well, those days have gone. Really, people just need to ask better questions. And now it's giving them factual stuff, and a lot of people don't seem to like it either. So you think, well, as you say, it's that Goldilocks bit. Is where is the right? And I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we've worked that bit out. And that's a really good question. So I mean, my question to you then would be, how much imperfection would you tolerate?
Well, I think it hits on several factors. I got three things in my head at the same time as we've been talking about. So we brought up the Oriental rugs,
Yes.
where that concept of putting an imperfection into the rug on purpose, because I can't remember the rationale that I heard about it, but I just recall people talking about a lot of the handcrafted specialized Oriental rugs. The crafters will purposefully put an imperfection in there because they don't believe it's the right thing to do to have a perfect rug. Yeah, I don't know if it's a spiritual thing or if it's a cultural thing or what it is, but there's that concept of purposefully putting in imperfections just to demark it for your own purposes of authenticity or something. But then the Goldilocks effect is like, okay, well, there's the just right. You got the too hot, too cold, too soft, too hard. Well, she just did trial and error. She tried everything until she got the one she wanted, right? And
Yeah.
so there's that piece of it. But then I also think about the Matrix. I don't know if you know the movies, right?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
got the red pill and the blue pill, but then after that, you get the explanation at the end. And I think the movie's far enough long. We're not spoiling anything for anybody, but at the end where they're talking about how, yeah, we gave humans everything, we gave them utopia, and they outright rejected utopia.
Yeah.
Like, so like the world that we're living in, with all of its crazy imperfections and all the things that are wrong with the inequalities, everything that we care about that we don't like about this world, was the only world that we would ever accept.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if it was a dystopia where everything is broken and damaged, and nothing is right, we don't accept that. We will fight until it's fixed to some level of normalcy. And then if it's some utopia, we reject that and we start breaking it and destroying it until it gets back down to some level of, again, normalcy, which is not perfect by any stretch of
Yeah.
several different imaginations.
No, absolutely. And every religion in the world is based around that very concept
Hmm.
of the Garden of Eden is the obvious example. But, you know, paradise doesn't, the whole concept of paradise doesn't work because every religion is based on either you were in paradise and now you're not, or you're trying to get into paradise but you're not there yet, or some version of that anyway. Particularly a religious person, but that does seem to me to be a very powerful concept about that. But I was just wondering whether or not those Oriental rug makers are putting in this flaw as a signature, so that when you buy a rug, you might know it's from a particular person, or that it might be their mark, if that makes sense. That
Hmm.
you would be able to identify themselves. And I'm just wondering now whether or not AI is going to go down a similar route. You might eventually, I don't know how this would work, you might eventually look at something and think, oh, I know who wrote that, because they write in a particular way, even though AI has written it for them, but they've put in their signature mark, their signature. It might be a word or a phrase that they put in, um, so that it's them that's actually had an input into it. Um, that might be quite fun, actually, to have like a trademark thing
Right.
you put
Well,
into everything. That
so
well,
I have a
yeah,